Alofa lava, kia ora, and welcome back to Breaking Waves. Welcome to Financial Fridays, where today is dedicated to sharing our experiences with money to help you make better decisions around your own personal finances. Today, I'm joined again by Simon Rolland, CEO of Aurora Capital, business builder, and Avondale College graduate, a lover of mountaineering, good hikes, and general all-round good guy. How are you this morning, Simon?
I'm well. Thank you for having me on today. It's great to be here.
Yeah, how's your week been?
It's been a good week. Obviously, Waitangi Day on Tuesday, so it meant we had a public holiday. So managed to get across to Waiheke with a few friends, which was
awesome.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, good weather. I've never had such good weather in Auckland. So yeah, no, it's been a good week. Pretty busy at work as well, but yeah, good week.
Yeah. Could you just tell us a bit about what you're focusing on with business this year and kind of like your profile or background in finance?
Yeah, so I've been in financial services since I was 21. I'm almost 36, so 15 years now. I'm CEO of a KiwiSaver firm called Aurora Capital. So a big part of my role is obviously working on the business, helping us get our mission, which is to help a lot of people with the KiwiSaver, help educate New Zealanders, all New Zealanders. And I'm really passionate about making sure New Zealand as a whole gets ahead financially because, you know, we're not the best with money. It's not necessarily something that we grow up with or taught. And so, you know, I'm on a real mission to actually help people go, it's not that hard. We just need to demystify it, get a bit of education out there and, yeah, improve the lives of everyone.
For sure. And I'll definitely get into talking about KiwiSaver later on into this. But thank you so much for joining us today on our show. We really appreciate your time. We're now into our second month of the year. It's February now of 2024. It literally feels like last week everyone was just doing their New Year's resolution goals. You see all the positive quotes on social media and everyone's writing out what they want to achieve for the year. On today's episode, I wanted to focus on the money mistakes we've made in our early years, in our early 20s, and why we wouldn't make them again. But I wanted to start by introducing both of our backgrounds so that people watching can understand, and it gives a bit of context of the financial backgrounds we come from. So you can start off first, if that's okay.
Sure.
Or did you want me to start off? I can start
you
off.
go first. And
Okay,
then
I'll go first. Okay, so I'm Samoan. So we're from the migration family. My parents moved here in 1994, and we lived in a state house. So all these things were normal for me growing up. It was like the happiest time of my life. It was a 3-bedroom, and our home was often used by our family members to come to New Zealand to find work, and then they'd spread out when they found their home. So it was a very busy home. Money wasn't really, I didn't get sit downs with my parents and they'd tell me, if you say 50 cents, or we had like little money jars that we'd put aside for them to teach us savings. It wasn't really like that. Money for me was my parents control it, and it's there to help feed us and put the power on, put the water on, and that's all that happened with money. That's all I thought about with money. When I got a bit older and was able to work, well, I wasn't really. I was 13 picking strawberries from a strawberry farm next to the airport.
Yeah.
And I used to go with my brothers to go strawberry picking. At the end of the day, it was never a thought in my mind where I'd be like, okay, I'm going to get $5 from this and I'm going to put it away. It was like, I'm coming to help pick strawberries so we can have dinner tonight. And then the choice of how that money was spent was left to my older brother or to my parents. So money to me has always been about giving it to the person who was the leader of the home to provide for people. And it was really hard, but when you're growing up in it, it's kind of just like, it's okay. It's like, it's normal for those things to happen. So now that I'm older, I'm learning different things about money, our relationship with money, how we view money. And unfortunately, because of how my mindset of money growing up, it really affected my financial decisions as an adult, which weren't really healthy. But we'll get into that soon. What about you? What was your relationship with money growing up?
Yeah, so I'm from Titirangi in West Auckland. I guess I was really lucky. I had two parents, both worked full time, both had good jobs. One earned more than the other, but they were both, good jobs. My mum was a university lecturer. Sounds really good, but actually didn't get paid very well at all. And then my dad was a IT and eventually an IT lawyer. and he had a pretty good salary as well.
Mm.
But I learned lots from my surroundings, and yeah, and I guess money for me actually happened at school. I'm one of the few people that we were really lucky. So Titirangi Primary School,
Right.
up the road in the village was an ASB bank, and they opened up accounts for every kid at school. And every Friday, we would collect coins from the week. You know, 50 cents here, 20 cents here, and then you would take it to the bank on Friday. Well, you'd hand it to the teacher, and the teacher would take it to the bank, and they would stamp an old bank book. And so you actually watched as your like savings grew. And it's funny, so even to today, 30 odd years later, a lot of my friends, we still have ASB Titirangi, the branch actually doesn't exist anymore, bank account numbers. So all of our bank account numbers are still very similar, which is quite cool. So that kind of introduced me to the game of savings. And it's just something that's stuck with me ever since. So that's sort of how I got introduced to money, was actually through school, and just through being really lucky that that's something that my primary school did, and it's something I think every primary school should do.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think money was introduced a lot in my primary school. I went to Southern Cross. Or maybe I'm thinking I just didn't take the right classes, or I wasn't put into the right classes for them. But even in high school, we weren't introduced to any sort of financial literacy workshops. And it's something I push for and heavily advocate for now, is to make sure that they are in schools. I'm pretty sure they're in schools, a lot of schools now, on how to save. And
Yeah, it's funny
yeah.
that, right? They teach us things like calculus, and unless you're going to be an engineer, like that's no use to you in the real world. Like, how about how do we understand taxes? How do we
Yes,
understand savings?
exactly.
How do we understand paying rent, paying
Yeah.
mortgages?
And I know like people my age who are still trying to figure out what their tax code is, like how to decipher, because they weren't taught earlier on.
Yeah.
And all they know is work.
Yeah.
You know, they finish school, I work. I know I've worked these amount of hours, I just want my pay, but they haven't really discovered that part of it, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and that's, I've also been a worker my whole life. So when I was like 13, 14, I worked for a trucking company. By the time I was 15, I could drive. I've worked at Caltex. I was a courier driver later on. I've worked my whole life. As soon as I was able to work, I wanted to, because I wanted to have money, because money to me was freedom. And, money to me meant that I was in control of what I had to do. But definitely a different experience to you. Like, my money was my money, and was not expected to give to my parents.
Exactly. Whereas my money was my whole
their
family's
money.
money.
Yeah, no, completely different.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm pretty sure because of our different experiences, we've had different lessons learned in our early 20s about how we've used money in the wrong way. So I'll show you some of mine.
Yeah.
Like one of my biggest mistakes I made in my early 20s was getting a student loan. Now that I look back and reflect on it. But there was a bit of pressure, especially as migrants, to come to New Zealand to get an education and then get into like a good job, full-time work. Our parents were kind of the people who put themselves to sacrifice to work in warehousing, or, jobs that don't offer as much salary as being in a special field. So I pressured myself. That pressure came to me, just like the money was not mine, and it went to like the shared community that I was in with my family. And I decided to get a student loan for a degree that I did not even like. I just wanted to make sure, okay, my family know that I'm in university and I'm going to work towards getting a salary. A dream that was sold to us, that once you get a degree, you get a really cool job with a 6-digit salary, which is not true at all for a lot of people. So that was sold to me. That was one of my biggest regrets, was going straight into uni. After. Another one would be getting a credit card, or the $2,500 ASB student overdraft that you could get access to just by being a student. And then when you're coming from a place where money was given to someone else to make the decisions, and all of a sudden, holy crap, I've got $2,500. I'm going to go buy me the latest Nikes. I'm going to go get me some awesome gears to show off to people at uni that, I'm geared up. I can afford these shoes. So that was because I had an unhealthy relationship with money and trying to impress others and having no financial boundaries.
Well, they say if you buy lots of stuff, you end up with stuff all. because
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
and it's just so true, and it doesn't even matter how big or how small your income is. Like if you've got that mindset of just buying things because you've got the money. I mean, I've got friends who've got great salaries and have nothing to show for it. They just stuff all, right? But then you've got other people who are a lot more wise with their money, and they've got a lot to show for it. So yeah, it's definitely yeah, something that you've got to learn to be better with, right? If you're not lucky enough to be naturally good with money like some
Yeah,
people are.
absolutely.
But yeah, no, it's definitely something that you can work on.
Yeah, and it's like the mindsets that you have with money, especially the one I just wanted to focus in about trying to impress people with money you don't have, with things you can't afford.
Yeah.
And now we have Afterpay
Mm.
that helps, in my opinion, it helps fuel into that kind of mindset where you can't, you don't need to pay for all of it now. Just pay a quarter. You probably can't afford it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's funny. So I almost got lucky when I first started working because, like you, I had a lot of pressure to go to university, and I also I had a student loan, but not the piece of paper to show for it. So I had the debt, but not the qualification at the end of it. And so when I decided to leave university without completing university, there was a lot of pressure. My brother has a degree, my parents have multiple degrees. That's what you have to do to have a good job and to have a good life. It's all based on that. So I understand that pressure. But I was quite lucky because my first real job outside of, working at a petrol station or being a courier driver, was actually a commission only job. And being commission only, the one blessing of being commission only is you are considered the lowest of low when it comes to getting loans from banks or credit cards from banks. So, whenever I went to the bank and they went, "Oh, you're commission only, no credit card for you." You'd go and, want to buy a car from somewhere. "Oh, you're commission only." No,
Yeah.
not for you. Where if I just had a minimum wage job, I would have been able to have all this consumer debt or bad debt given to me easily. So I actually learned from when I was 21 that, well, I can't get debt easily because I'm commission only, and B, no one's going to come to the rescue. So I had to learn to save money for myself. So if I wanted to buy something, I could, but also, I could bail myself out of a bad situation. So I was quite lucky that I was thrown in the deep end and had to swim, sink or swim. But yeah, so
Yeah.
that was kind of how I had to view it, and that taught me you've got to save. You've got to save, and you've got to save for a rainy day. If I didn't get paid next week, it didn't mean my rent didn't need to get paid, didn't mean that my food didn't
Exactly.
get paid, and that actually kicked me off in a way of getting some really good habits.
Yeah. And you've probably made a lot of mistakes to get to where you are right now. What are some of the stuff that you had to go through in your 20s?
Yeah, well, I also had that pressure of, to be successful, you've got to buy a house. So I actually bought my first house when I was 23 years old. And I hated it. Like, it was a big mortgage. It was, money every week going out. Interest rates were high like they are now. I just almost just bought it just to shut people up, because people are like, "Oh, somebody else has bought a house and this other person's buying a
To prove
house." And
yourself.
yeah, like, "Oh, you've got a job and, you should be buying a house too." And, I rushed into the process. And for me, the biggest mistake I made was I didn't get a builder's report done because I'd been going to all these houses and losing at auctions and spending all this money on due diligence that by the time I got to the fourth or fifth house that I was looking to potentially buy, I just went, "You know what, I'll just make an offer, and if they accept it, great, and if they don't, that's fine." And I made an offer and they accepted it, but I didn't do a builder's report. Fast forward 9 months and there's $100,000 roof problem. And $100,000 when you're 24 years old, that's a lot of money, and 10 years ago, that's even more money. And that was a really steep learning curve for me going, property isn't something that you can always win at, and it isn't something that just makes you money, and it has real costs. So I was probably one of the few people that weren't like, "Oh, property, 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 property. It's the best way to make money. It's the only way to make money." For me, by the time I was 25, I'd lost lots of money in property and didn't like owning my own house, and ended up selling it just to get rid of that debt.
Do you reckon you felt like sort of trapped?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, suddenly I went from having a pretty nice lifestyle to, the bank needs to be paid before I can go out and have, dinner with friends, or I can go and do another adventure, or I can go and do something that I'm more interested in. No, it was like bank gets paid first.
Yeah.
And that was quite daunting at a young age.
Did being trapped to a mortgage or tied to a mortgage affect your mental health a lot at that time?
Yeah, I guess mental health wasn't really a thing back then.
Yeah.
But absolutely, and it really kind of gives you tunnel vision to going, all I can do is pay off the mortgage, and you can't see the wider world of what else is out there and what you should be doing. So for me, rushing into a property was a really bad financial mistake. And then even later on, another massive financial mistake I made was I tried to get back into property, but in a different angle, and I ended up being burnt by a fraudulent property developer.
Oh no.
Yeah, and that was...
Well, that happens a lot in the Pacific community as well.
Yeah.
Scams even come into the church.
Yeah.
And people get scammed all the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and scams, they don't look like scams. They don't feel like scams. And, you want to do well. You want to keep up with other people. You want to be seen as doing good things with your money. And, yeah, often you can get taken advantage of. And again, that was another massive learning curve for me. Like I'd done quite well in my first job. I'd earned good money.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I was broke and had nothing. And everything I'd built up over the first sort of 4 or 5 years of my working life was gone. So yeah, it was a very steep learning curve. But scams out there exist, and you've got to be very careful. And the old saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's a trap you've got to look for, because people want to make money off other people who don't have that knowledge of going, no, that's not how it works, or no, that's not what it should be like, or maybe you should ask 2 or 3 questions like this to see if it's really the real deal or not.
Yeah. If it sounds too good to be true, it's probably not real.
Yeah.
Yeah, because...
What's the catch? It's always what, and I always got to ask yourself, like, what's in it for the person who's presenting this opportunity or presenting this, way to get ahead?
Yeah.
Because the honest truth is, to get ahead in life, it's normally pretty boring. It's normally takes time. It's definitely not sexy. And shortcuts, they just seem like, it's the way to
shortcuts
go.
don't exist.
That's why the shortcut's not the actual road.
Yeah.
So, but it's hard. You've got to sometimes get burnt once or twice before you learn. Don't go down that path. Don't go down this path. Stick to the basics.
Absolutely. And I'm going to bring this back to, because New Zealand has become ridiculously expensive, especially Auckland, to live in. I wouldn't say much about, areas outside of Auckland, but everyone wants to live in Auckland. The opportunity is here. They can do business here. It's been hard for a lot of families just to make basic ends meet. One day a bag of apples can be $10 at frickin' Countdown. So I know a lot of people my age who are giving up. They're on great salaries. These are like graduates who are like lawyers, doctors, but they cannot afford to live the New Zealand dream of owning a home. So first question I wanted to ask you, because you run a KiwiSaver, a company, is, do you think that's still the New Zealand dream of owning a home?
Yeah. I mean, I think it still is the dream, but should it be the dream? Home ownership has some massive pros to it, but it also has some massive cons. And, the supermarkets in New Zealand are just so expensive. And, the annoying thing about New Zealand now is it's really, really cheap if you don't work in New Zealand. Like, the New Zealand dollar is so low that if you work overseas and come to New Zealand, like I have friends visiting here from overseas at the moment, they can't get over how cheap it is. But if you...
That's crazy.
It's crazy, right? But if you work in New Zealand and earn New Zealand dollars, it's super expensive. So when I go to the supermarket, I think it's expensive. So how families on regular salaries with, 3 kids, 4 kids, whatever to provide for, it must be very tough. And it's, it means that the dream of home ownership is pretty tough. So what I'd say about, is it the dream and should it be the dream? Well, are we buying a house to show off? Are we buying a house to provide a reasonable place for our family to live, or are we buying a house as an investment or as an asset, right? And I think the different mindset between the 3 or 4 different ways of looking at a property really should guide you to where you need to live and how you need to live. So yeah, is it the dream? Yes. Is it fading? Yes. Is it still possible? Absolutely. it really is. But
What are your thoughts on why it's fading, besides the fact that it's ridiculously expensive?
without getting political,
That.
yeah, I mean, well, one thing is New Zealanders, we get sold the stream of property, and it's the only way to get ahead, right? So, so I spend a little bit more of my salary to get into a house, and then you spend a little bit more of yours to get into a house, and then I spend a little bit more of mine, and then you spend a little bit more of yours, and then suddenly we've only got ourselves to blame. It is us that keep going out and spending more and more percentage of our salary on houses. Why? Houses, the stream that they keep going up and keep going up. It's almost like hot potato. Like,
Yeah,
I've got the hot
exactly.
potato, you got the hot potato, you got the hot potato. And, we have, I guess you'd say, policies that really make people put more money into property than they should. And property is a non-productive asset. Like, it doesn't actually, most houses just get worse when you live in them. The house doesn't naturally get better. They depreciate. But yet we keep paying more and more for houses. And I think that's a cultural thing. The cultural thing is, you're unsuccessful if you don't own a house. You're poor if you don't own a
Yes,
house.
absolutely.
Where, I look overseas, other cultures, it's no, it doesn't matter if you own your home or not.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That people like overseas, I know for a fact, here in New Zealand, that's a question that's used to judge you. Like, oh, do you guys own your own home, or are you guys still renting?
Yeah.
And then once you say, oh, well, renting, there's kind of this like
Ooh.
shady attitude
Yeah.
towards you.
Yeah.
Which really sucks, to be honest.
Yeah, because again, that pushes up prices if everyone has to be an owner and everyone has to, have that stigma around them. So yeah, the question is, and like, you can look at countries with high home ownership rates. Like, the highest home ownership rate in the world is Romania, right? I don't know about you, but I've been to Romania. It's a lovely country, but I don't actually want to live in Romania, right? Where you look at countries with low home ownership rates, it's like Switzerland, where the standard of living is the highest in the world. So, I'm 35. None of my friends who are 35 or younger in Switzerland own a home, but they all have good incomes. They have really strong pensions. They have investments outside of their income. And I would say that they are my wealthier friends than my New Zealand friends who have bought a house,
Right.
but have a massive mortgage
Yeah.
and have spent their whole income paying back the bank. So it's a different mindset, right? But there's other factors that play into New Zealand needing to have a home. That is your financial security in New Zealand once you retire.
Yeah.
Retiring without owning a home is pretty tricky. But on the other hand, what else can you do? So yeah. But I mean, it's got to be a priority if you want to buy a house, and it definitely helps if there's two of you or
Yeah.
more.
Absolutely. So for people who still hold on to that dream, and because you're running a KiwiSaver company, what would your advice be to anyone going down that journey of home ownership?
Yeah, well, I mean, KiwiSaver is the only reason we see clients still buying houses.
Yeah.
Right? So if you've been in KiwiSaver for 10 years...
Well, can I say something first? I've been seeing posts on TikTok, all not factual, but a lot of people are saying KiwiSaver is a scam and that they shouldn't invest in it. It's not worth putting your money there. It doesn't grow.
Yeah.
What would your reply or response be to that kind of attitude towards KiwiSaver in the first place?
Yeah, and that's purely through lack of education. And I'll be honest, when I studied to become an investment advisor, this was when KiwiSaver was brand new. I was in that camp of thinking, oh, I know better than KiwiSaver, and I know better. I can do better than the government. And then I actually studied investment advising, and I was like, oh man, I was so wrong. So if you're a salaried employee, KiwiSaver is great. I put in 3%. Employer puts in 3%, you instantly get 100% return on your money. Now, I challenge all those people that saying KiwiSaver is a scam and it's not a very good investment to go, can you name me another investment where you get 100% return? Let alone the investment returns on top of that. So yeah, it's just through not understanding how KiwiSaver works. That's why people say things like that. Now, markets go up and down. So yes, but KiwiSaver, you can only realize your gains or losses when either A, you buy your first home, or B, you hit 65 and you retire. So if the balance of your KiwiSaver goes up and down, if you're not taking it out that day, it doesn't matter. And too many people fixate, they go, oh, I had a minus 3%. Well, that just means things got cheaper. Keep buying, because when things go back up plus 10%, you've got more units and more, assets in your KiwiSaver, so therefore you get 10% on more. So it's really about understanding how KiwiSaver works. So for me, and again, 35 years old, all my friends in New Zealand who own home, all of them used KiwiSaver. You know, it's a only way that you're going to get 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, $100,000
Yeah.
put aside in your first 10 years of working. Because out of sight, out of mind, you can't touch it. There's some great things about KiwiSaver where if you put it into a savings account, you don't get the returns. If you put it into term deposit, you don't really get the same level of returns. So what else are you going to do to really start putting away money to get that deposit so you can buy a home?
Absolutely. And it's good that it goes into an account that you can't touch. I know for a lot of Pacific families, we have what we call laves, events, weddings, funerals that come up unexpectedly. And we have to draw out a lot of our savings sometimes to contribute to those things. So I guess that's another way as well, is that you can't touch it. Or to touch it is actually a really lengthy process, right? To get to it,
yeah.
which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the harder it is to get your KiwiSaver, the better. And that's for your own good. Because otherwise, all you're doing is stealing from yourself in the future.
Yeah.
Right? You're not beating the system by getting your KiwiSaver out. You're not actually helping yourself. And the less you can check your KiwiSaver, the less you just put it away, forget about it, let it just tick over in the background and do its thing, the better. Yeah, because if you suddenly see you've got KiwiSaver of 10, 20, 30, $40,000, a lot of our clients, that's their biggest account that they have. You know, they might have $2,000 or $3,000 in their savings account, but $30,000, $35,000 in their KiwiSaver. And as soon as you start thinking that's yours to touch and yours to take, you've missed the point of KiwiSaver.
Yeah.
KiwiSaver is to buy a home and to retire.
Right. So the advisors that work for Aurora, they sit down and educate people on these kind of matters?
Yeah. So that's their job. So they're all salaried. They're not there on a commission. They take a client through what's called a fact find process because, you know, your situation's different to mine, different to everyone else's here. And they actually really get to know the clients. Once they know the clients, the second part of the process is to educate them. And a lot of what they do is just, this is what KiwiSaver was designed to do. If you understand what KiwiSaver was designed to do, then it's very easy for you as the client to actually make an educated, decision on where and how you want to manage and look after your KiwiSaver.
Yeah.
And so, you know, for me, I can almost summarize KiwiSaver in one phone call. And I've had this phone call before, and it's from, imagine you'll turn 65. All right, it's your 65th birthday. It's hard for us to do when we're young. I had a friend's mum call me. She said, "Hey, Simon, I'm 65 years old and I want to talk to you about my finances." And I went, okay. You know, my first question was, do you own your own home? If the answer is no, how much is your rent? $650 a week. How much is your income? $850 a week. This is a tricky situation, right? The first part of what KiwiSaver is designed to do is to make sure when you turn 65, you've owned a home for 10, 20, or even 30 years, right? So when we go, do you own a home? You go, yes, and it's paid off. Whew. That's the first step to a comfortable retirement. The second question is, how much is in your KiwiSaver? Have you been contributing for the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years? Or did you set it up when you were 63 and it's got 20 grand in it?
Yeah.
Because the difference in outcomes for the client is massive. So the whole reason KiwiSaver was invented was so that the government, who currently pays 65-year-olds the pension, which is I think a couple of $100 a week, right? They want to move that burden from the government's back pocket to the individual's back pocket. So supplemental income that you're going to need when you retire, you need to start putting aside now. So KiwiSaver is to say, yes, at 65, when you call me, you go, yeah, I own a home. We bought it 15 years ago. Yeah. And it's almost paid off. And do you have what's your KiwiSaver balance? Oh, it's $400,000 because I've been contributing in it, 6% of my wages for the last 30 years. That's all it's designed to do. Right. But when you understand that, then you can go, okay, maybe it is good to put a little bit more in now while I can. Definitely a good idea not to touch it unless I absolutely have to. And then use it. Use it to get into your first home. It's a great way to get a deposit together. And it's a mandatory forced savings if you're in it and you're a salaried employee. So make the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as someone who's a child of migrants who came here, I still feel like people can have that dream to have their home, because for migrants it means that more of their family can come through and have somewhere comfortable to stay. So with that in mind, I was just thinking, what would what's the best financial advice you've received as a person?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always had the concept of paying myself first. So even if I earned, $800 a week after tax, I would pay myself $500 a week. And then off that $500 a week, and that's obviously when I'm in my early 20s and, I only have to pay rent and food and petrol. I don't have to pay for a mortgage. But, but that way I'd get $500 a week, and whatever was above that would just go straight into a savings account, and you start building up that savings. So for me, pay yourself first rather than going, what's all my expenses this week? And if there's anything left over, that's mine, right? It's the opposite. If you do that, you'll never have anything left over. So yeah, pay yourself first. The second really good bit of financial advice I got was get into a job that can actually lead to higher pay, whether it's through bonuses, whether it's through pay rises. If you're in a job that, someone who's 20 years older than you still isn't on much more money than you, don't waste your time. Get into a different industry and, look for somewhere where you can actually get better paid jobs, because better paid jobs are out there. But sometimes it's just being smarter at the start of your career, going, hey, actually, I don't want to get into this industry because the highest paid person in the industry only earns a little bit more than minimum wage.
Yeah.
So let's not put the time and effort in there. Let's go to another path where there are actually opportunities. And sometimes it's not even as like supermarkets, right? We kind of, I don't look down, but people have this thing that, you work at a supermarket, it's a low skill, low paid job, which, it can be an introductory job, but, supermarkets do promote within. They do have, you're the produce manager now. You're the, the cold store out the back manager now.
Yeah.
You're the forklift operator. You actually can get on really good pay, relatively well paid jobs in that sort of industry. Where if you just go and work at a factory and you're not, on any sort of education to become the manager or the foreman or whatever, you can just get trapped.
Yeah, for sure. That's really good advice. So first one was
pay yourself.
Yeah. And second one was find a workplace where you can like grow, and they can help you grow, and your salary can increase. And there's some really good perks in there as well. And I mean, sometimes it means taking a risk, which is easier to do when you're younger, right? Like I said, when I started my working career, I was on a commission only job, right? It was a job that basically had anyone could get this job. Literally, you could walk in the door and they'd hire you because there was no risk to the business, right? So that's quite risky to do. Now, when you're younger, it's a bit easier to do, but if you've got, family responsibilities, you've got other things, you can't take that risk. So that's why you've got to go, where's a job that I can get into that if I work hard, actually show up on time, do a good job, I will eventually go up. But there's definitely industries where that doesn't happen, and they're the ones you want to avoid. For sure. And me and you are sitting here, we're really comfortable talking about finances, our personal finances and our mistakes, but I know that's not the case for everyone. A barrier that I've realized in the Pacific community is a fear to talk about your finances to someone, or a fear of getting rejected at a bank because you're applying for a loan or a mortgage. And because of that fear, we want to be kept in our own square. We don't want anyone to know what our finances are like because there's a shame behind it. What would your advice be to someone with that mindset who has a fear of asking for help when it comes to budgeting or finances?
I mean, and that fear is real across the spectrum, right? Like it's almost seen as a taboo to talk about your salary or to talk about your income, and there is that fear of being judged. Is your salary too low? But also, is your salary too high? Like I did quite well when I was quite young, and people judged me because my income was higher than other people's, right? So I mean, how do you get over that that fear, I guess, and I mean, there can be ways that for me, honestly, the beautiful thing about where we are as technology wise is YouTube. I go on YouTube and watch videos and go, how do I get better at insert thing I want to get better at? And actually just start, educating yourself with some content. What are ways that I can understand my finances? Who can I talk to? Now, yes, you can reach out to a financial advisor, but I actually find that technology can be the first step. Is get on YouTube, find some videos that are, you're interested in and you enjoy the person who's talking, and just educate yourself on, being better with finances. The second thing is like, maybe, how do I budget? Google, how do I budget? You know, get a little Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Go, here's my income. Here's what all my expenses are.
But also in saying that, don't believe the first Google search. Like, do some
Yeah.
look around.
Yeah.
Go shopping.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, but there are lots of resources that you can access.
Yeah.
You know, personally, I've started using a budgeting app.
Oh,
You know,
what's that one called?
it's called Budget Buddy. It's just recently gone live, and I'm doing a bit of advisory work to the owners, and you know, it's cool because it's going, you know, what do I need to know? You know, how do I, you know, if you can't if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So you got to know, oh, well, I'm spending way more than I thought on A, and I'm spending way more than I thought on X, and you know, way more than I thought on Y, and actually just understanding where your money is going is also a really good place. So yeah, understanding your money, where the holes are, where the leaks are, and then how do you do things to, you know, stick to a budget? How do you set a budget? And also like goals. You know, do you have any financial goals? Like if you have no financial goals, you're just happy with existing. Well, that's why you don't own a home. That's why you don't, you know, you're not very good with your finances. Like, you know, and maybe you're okay with that. And and if you are okay with that, great, you know. But if you are genuinely wanting to get ahead, right, you've got to set some goals, and that means some sacrifices. Like you've got to work more hours. You've got to spend less. You've got to say, oh, you know, for lava-lavi, I can do a little bit. I can't do more.
For sure.
You know?
I think the next time you come on, Simon will be joining us regularly. For these Financial Fridays, we should talk about that, as how to set proper financial boundaries.
Yeah.
Because I think it's deeper than setting boundaries, like, as an act in itself.
Yeah.
It's a lot to do with what people are battling internally as to why they can't set those financial boundaries. But thank you so much, Simon, for coming to our show. You shared a lot of wealth of knowledge with us. It's been great to sit down with you and have a genuine conversation around money and different things that we can do to improve and survive in this economy that we're currently in right now.
And if anyone wants to reach out to me, you can find me on Instagram. I'm happy to, you know, I mean, I'd love to see people get better with money. Like it just, you know, it's very, like, it's actually more rewarding seeing other people take on the advice and go, hey, actually, you know, we've got ourselves ahead now. Hey, actually, we're starting to think maybe a family holiday is possible. Maybe we can actually get into a home. So yeah, reach out to me if you want to chat. I'm more than happy to help people or send them in the right direction. And, you know, thanks very much for having me. And yeah, I look forward to coming back. And
we will put your links to your social media, Simon's social media, and also LinkedIn profiles will be attached to this episode. So feel free to check him out. And like you said, he's open to messages, so feel free to DM him as well. But thank you so much, everyone, who has tuned into our show today. We really appreciate your time. Have an amazing Friday. Breaking Waves. Like, follow, and subscribe.